Hello, welcome to a new video of mine. Today I want to talk about how you in life should take responsibility over many things, even over things that you think you shouldn't be responsible for, or things that don't even have anything to do with you. Basically, I want to start with um, a scenario that you could think about. For example, in a situation where, for example, you're being wrongfully accused of something, or in a situation that someone doesn't like you, or in a situation that basically brings anything bad onto you. These situations oftentimes don't have anything directly correlating with our actions, but in another way, there are things that we can do to alter how things are going to play out. For example, if you're always with a certain kind of friend group that is constantly harassing you, or I don't know, being mean to you, even though you didn't do anything wrong, then it's not your fault that they are being mad rude to you. But on the other hand, one could say that you hanging out with them, even though that happens all the time, is you making the decision to let that happen to you. And in that way, you are responsible for something, even though you're not directly initiating something. In my opinion, we should always be aware of that. You're not the one to. You are still the victim if something like that happens to you. Cyberbullying, bullying in general, even something like a sexual assault. Even though people that happen to are the victims in these situations, there are ways and things you could have done to prevent it. And I'm not saying that. In my opinion, you should always be aware of what you're doing, and if you get a bad vibe from someone, or if you just made terrible experience with a person, not a group or anything like that, with a person especially, then you can distance yourself so that the harm that is inflicted onto you is as minimal as it can be. And it's not only that in social situations you should take responsibility for things to prevent harmful stuff going on and happening onto you. You should always also take responsibility for things that you don't directly initiate but are still a result of your habits, patterns, and everything you do in your everyday life. For example, maybe you have a tendency to be overweight, but that doesn't excuse you from doing any kind of sport, because even though this tendency exists through your hormones or your body composition, anything like that, anything that has to do with your DNA and how your body is structured, even though you have these disadvantages, it doesn't mean that you're not still responsible for being overweight, for example. This is just an example. You could also say that in educational educational wise. For example, if you are not as easily able to consume knowledge like other people in your class or your friends, that doesn't excuse you from learning, because even though it's harder for you, that doesn't mean it's impossible. And I see it in this way: everyone has his or hers hardships. It's not just, I can assure you that you're not terrible in everything. That's simply not possible. And even though that's the case, you are naturally good at some things and naturally bad, I wouldn't let myself be led by that so much. Because even though you're not that passionate, you're not that interested, or you're not that good at any sport, that doesn't mean that you should be discouraged or throw away any possibility to physical exercise that would help you lose some pounds or kilograms or other things. Because I oftentimes hear from people that you, rather than training on things that you're not that good at, you should further enhance your strengths. And even though that sounds reasonable at first hand, it can lead to someone being very much one-sided, and we as human beings can't just be one-sided in one regard. For example, you can't, if we want to take the over topic health, if you focus on your natural ability to not get overweight that easily and enhance that, I wouldn't know how to enhance that. I think I should bring another example that's a bit clearer. For example, if you have a work theme, something you have to work on, and to this topic there are many under topics that have to be balanced in the right way, because if you overshoot at one point, you will undershoot and maybe not even include the other points that are also heavily important for that topic. In regards of health, you shouldn't just focus, for example, on mental health, but also on your body and how healthy it exercises and what you give it throughout the day. On the other hand, you shouldn't only specialize on bodily or activity or health in that way, but you should also care for your mental health. It's just pendling the same amount of things so that we can survive. We don't have to survive in the literal way, but so that we can, in my opinion, live a good life, we have to be balanced. And if you think about it, recently I had in school the minimum Gesetz. It basically describes, I can't tell you what it's called in English, but it basically describes how the most unpresent factor determines how effective or how good something goes. For example, we also say that in sports, the team is just as good as its weakest member. It's just as slow as its weakest member, because we have certain things that limitate us from extending and going further in other areas. For example, a plant, even though it gets enough sunlight to take part in photosynthesis, without other variables like water, it's not as sufficient because it's limited by this lesser factor. And I think we should also see ourselves like that, because if you only focus on one thing, then you take away your ability to comply in the bigger picture, because spiking out in one area will stop you more than it will help you. Because even though you can go far when you concentrate only on one thing, you will get on a plateau that you can't leave without also enhancing other areas in your life. Everything plays together, and there are many components to this. Why you should also take responsibility to things that aren't completely your fault and claim it to be your fault is that we oftentimes tell ourselves to feel better about some things, that we had no choice, that we couldn't even change it. And while doing that, we take the responsibility and put it away from us. But while doing that, you also take away from yourself the ability to change something about it. When someone says they are not naturally good at school, and then they limit themselves, they will never be good at school because they think they won't ever be. And I think it's clear why you shouldn't limit yourself in areas that you could enhance further. But we oftentimes like to do this because we think it's harder for us, but the most things are not as hard as we think. It's easy to start things if we're not looking at only the bad things or only the good things. Because if you're only looking at the good sides of things, then you will most likely trigger dopamine, and you won't really get that far if you're always just imagining how good your win will be. You have to win, because your mind can't separate between winning in real life and winning in your head. And on the other hand, you shouldn't only focus on bad things that could happen to you, like risks you take. But if you don't look at them at all, then you will be not prepared in situations that you could have been prepared in, while just thinking about possibilities that can go wrong. Again, you have this playing together of different sides, and I think that's the most balanced, literally, way to go on with things. Because just going in one extreme will also limit you from anything, because having one extremist political view will limit you from seeing things that you would also agree in. But if you have something that determines your way of thinking and that influences your thinking, I will let that thought go. I know what I want to say, but it's not that important for this video right now. Because of that, I won't say it. in general, I said everything I wanted to say, and if you got anything good out of this video, and if you disagree or agree with things, you can let me know in the comments. This was really spontaneous for me. I didn't write a script or something, I just had a video idea in my mind to take responsibility, and I just talked, and I think that was, even though, no, I won't say anything further. Bye bye.